everyone, welcome back to another video. I am already in my next tournament. I am currently in Spain for the third Magistral Villa Zahara Norm tournament, and I'm super excited to play another tournament so quickly. But yeah, this tournament is special because it is a round-robin tournament. 10 players are facing each other, and at a certain amount of points, you will be able to achieve a norm. So in open tournaments, it's a little bit complicated sometimes to achieve a norm, but this is with the purpose that you can achieve a norm. But the problem is, it is quite difficult. So for me, I need to get to 6.5 points out of 9 to achieve the Woman Grandmaster norm. And at 7 points, I would achieve the International Master norm. So out of 9 is, quite difficult. It's not so easy. So yeah, I'm just going to do my best. I'm just going to have a good time and learn from my mistakes. And I just want to improve. So I don't think about the norm in this tournament too much because I'm ranked 8th out of 10. So there's 10 players and I'm 8th. So there's 7 people ahead of me, and I'm supposed to beat them in order to achieve the norm. So it's pretty difficult. But anyway, today we had 2 rounds already. This tournament has double rounds on almost every single day. So it's a pretty intense schedule. But the nice thing about this tournament is that the time control is 90 minutes and 30 seconds added after every single move. So that means that the games do not last super long because there's no 30 minutes added after move 40. So yeah, that's pretty nice actually. So anyway, without further ado, let's take a look what happened in my first 2 games. Let's talk about round 1. In round 1, I faced Mathieu Ternot from France, and he is rated 2299, and I believe he already hit 2400, so yeah, I knew what I was up against, so I was really excited to play against him. My points are with d4. I did expect this, but let me tell you something funny. So I was very unsure until the very last second what to play, because I did not like that my opponent had so many different moves on the first move, the second move, third move, etc. I couldn't really understand which line I wanted to go for. And yeah, then I was basically setting up my stream, and my commentator Vlad was making some moves to test, and he played d4, knight f6, and that's when I thought, you know what, I'm going to play knight f6. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea, and yeah, it's really crazy that I did not prep well enough for this game, but yeah, I just didn't really know what to play. I've been kind of thinking a lot about what I want to play against d4 these days, so I need to work on that a lot. And because of Reykjavik Open, I did not have time whatsoever to prepare well. By the way, I don't know if you heard that sound, but there's such big wind going on here. I have never seen anything like this. It's never happening here that there's such big wind. It's super windy. So yeah, if you hear the sound in the background, that's why. Anyway, so I decided to play knight f6 because I usually play either d5 or knight f6, but most of the times recently I've been playing d5. So at the board I was like, you know what? Let's just see what we will face here. c4, e6, and after knight f3 I play b6. And this is sort of the queen's Indian defense. And the idea is simple. You want to develop the bishop to b7. After a3, bishop b7. a3 is often played to stop any sort of bishop b4. So let's say if we quickly take a look, knight c3, bishop b4 could be a move, and this is sort of Nimzo type of structures already. So this is like a way to avoid that, I guess. All right, so my internet is half dying in my room, and for some reason that changed the board of on chess.com, so I'm looking at a green board and it kind of hurts my eyes, but we'll have to deal with this. Anyway, bishop e7, knight c3, bishop e7. I'm simply developing. I remember some lines with knight e4, but I wasn't entirely sure anymore of it, and I didn't want to risk going into lines that I wasn't sure about because these positions get very dynamic. So I just want to play very simple chess with bishop e7, d5, d6. And I was not entirely sure if this is any good, but I really liked that my opponent was at least out of their prep. So yeah, ever since move on, I believe my opponent did not expect knight f6. So that at least felt pretty good. But I also knew that I was kind of messing around a little bit over here. So g3 was played, e5, and I'm basically shutting down the center like this. And yeah, I want to play f5 at some point and start controlling the square c5 somehow. Maybe a knight jumps there. That would be nice. So h4 was played. White is taking space on the king side. I develop my knight, bishop h3, c6. So yeah, I'm simply attacking that pawn on d5, and well, if my opponent takes here, I'm not too upset about that. I'll just recapture, and I'm fine with that. I'm not too concerned about my pawn on d6 because my bishop will be opened up like this. So that is a huge, huge thing for that bishop. That poor bishop is locked over there. And yeah, if my opponent doesn't do anything, I can, at any given time, decide to take whenever I feel like, whenever I want to. My opponent plays bishop g5, and yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what the idea was behind this move, because I thought, okay, maybe my opponent wants to take on f6, and maybe they consider this bishop bad or want to get rid of it. But after h6, my opponent went back, so I was a bit confused what the idea was. But I was happy because, yeah, I don't mind playing h6 in this case. If my opponent plays, let's say, g4 at some point to play g5, I was okay to face it with h5 and then play knight g4 and try to shut down the king side attack somehow. And here in this position, after quite a long thought, I took on d5. It was a difficult decision to make because you don't want to do this really quickly, but I had an idea. After c takes d5, boom, we play b5. And the idea is simple. If my opponent takes on b5, I simply recapture a pawn on d5. And I'll be able to control the center. My bishop is opened on this long diagonal. And yeah, I just enjoy a really pleasant position. So my opponent, of course, doesn't take and plays queen d3. And here I just defend the pawn, of course. Knight e2 is played. And now I come in with knight c5. So I'm in a very active position now. This queen has, well, if the queen leaves, then the pawn is, of course, lost on d5. So my opponent is forced to take pretty much. Apparently, it is fine to go back and sacrifice a pawn, but that doesn't feel natural at all. So takes, it makes a lot of sense. I take back. My opponent plays e4, c4. I'm simply getting so much space on the queen side, and my bishop wants to go to c5 at some point. My opponent plays queen e2, queen c7. I want to put the queen on c7 with the reason that I'm stopping any sort of b3. So after b3, the knight on c3 would be hanging, right? So the queen is pointing towards that knight, and at the same time, my queen is stopping any sort of f4 breakthrough that could be really annoying at some point. So I really thought I have to stop any of this, at least for the time being. So that's why I preferred to play queen c7 instead of any other queen move, basically, because of course I considered queen b6 as well and queen a5, but I really like queen c7 because it felt very flexible. Knight f1 was played, and here I was feeling very confident. I went with queen a5 and I thought, let's go. I am pinning that knight, pinning the pawn on a3. So basically I'm threatening to play b4, and if I manage to play b4, it is lights out. This is a huge disaster. The king is still stuck in the center. And I thought my opponent can only play two moves. One of them is knight d2 back, because you have to fix the problem of this pin, right? Or simply rook c1 to defend the knight. But then, after very long thought, my opponent hit me with knight to e3. Well, my opponent spent 15 minutes on it, but it felt like an eternity because my opponent has 14 minutes left now, and I was on 34 minutes in this position. And the thing is that when my opponent played this move, I was very surprised. I mean, of course I considered it, but I thought, oh, I'm just taking the pawn e4, it's fine. But what I didn't realize is that after knight takes e4, there's knight takes c4, and after calculating all of this, let's say knight takes c3, knight takes, my opponent will take the bishop on b7. And then I have to leave, let's say knight d4, and then my opponent plays rook c1, is controlling the c file, will enter on c7 at some point, and yeah, I don't really have a good follow-up here. It's a little bit awkward. His bishop is controlling the c8 square, so I can never control the c file ever. So yeah, upon calculating this, I was not really satisfied, of course, with the position. And yeah, of course, if I take on c4 instead, I have a really awkward pawn structure, and I thought, yeah, I do have the pair of bishops, so maybe it's like good enough, but I wasn't entirely sure if it was worth it. I didn't like this at all. It felt very unsafe, but looks like the computer was really happy with it. At least it's equal, but it doesn't feel like that. I guess it's because of the pair of bishops. That makes sense. Anyway, so I decided to play g6. I just wanted to stop any sort of knight f5. It's a bit sad to admit that your opponent, is able to play this move, which you kind of tried to prevent. But I accepted it. I just want to make sure that my opponent cannot start an attack over here with the knight. The knight looks really scary. Short castle, and here my opponent went for h5, and I was really surprised because I did not expect this move whatsoever. So of course I take it, and after knight g4, my both e5 and h6 pawns are hanging. So now the question is, which one do I give to my opponent? Well, the logical answer is that I give away an h6 pawn, right? Because it's the one on the edge of the board. This pawn in the center is very important. We need to keep it. But after queen b6, so I'm basically preparing a threat like this. Oh, that arrow went wrong. I'm pinning the pawn because I want to play knight takes g3. So my opponent first has to resolve this. So my opponent plays king g2. And here I thought, okay, I want to give up that h6 pawn. I want to keep e5. So I played queen d6, which is apparently not a good move. Turns out that I was supposed to play knight f6 back, some insane move, and after knight takes e5, there will be issues along the e file, which is crazy. I would say that when you look at the position at first glance, it looks completely fine for white. I would rather take the white pieces here, but the computer is very happy with black's position and sees a lot of potential along the e file for black. So it's really difficult to say what is going on in this position, but yeah, I just tried to go for the human approach. Of course, it's more the human approach because after queen e2, I'm just shutting it down again. So I'm basically up a pawn, but we all see the problem about g5. I was very conscious of this, but I thought I have to do it. I didn't see any other move. But the problem is, of course, knight e3, and this hole on the board is going to be the reason that I will suffer for the rest of the game. Knight g7, rook h1, bishop c8. I'm simply not sure what move to play here because I'm just stuck. I want to push with h5 or f5, but none of those moves work out. So bishop takes, rook takes, and g4. Of course, my opponent wants to kind of shut down the king side because otherwise I get to play h5 maybe or f5, and then I slowly untangle from this position. King h7 I played because, yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what to do, but I just wanted to play rook h8. King goes back to g8, and then I defend the pawn on h6. But okay, my opponent went for knight e2, rook h8, knight g3. And here I played queen g6 because I thought, oh no, this is actually really bad because knight f5 was such a big threat. Actually, rook takes h6 is also incoming, so there's so many threats in this position. So as I went for the safe move, sort of, but I mean, I'm just losing here. Rook h3, king g8, knight f5. I take, of course, bishop f8, and yeah, this is actually really sad to look at. And the worst part is that, if my rook was maybe on a8, I could play a5, b4. Maybe that could help at least a little bit, but I don't even have that. My rook is on c8 and cannot contribute to anything in the game. So rook h1, rook h7, queen a5, and I'm just making moves. I'm just trying to survive. Yeah, it's a really sad situation. Actually, in this position, I thought, oh my goodness. I played rook h7 thinking that, okay, well, when I played the move, we were here on playing on seconds. We were both on 1 minute on the clock. So when I played this, I realized, oh, rook h6, lights out. Because if I take back with the bishop, of course, knight e7 check, and I lose the queen, right? And if I take back with the rook takes again, and my queen is trapped. So I have to take with the bishop. And this is, of course, completely lost. So, yeah, my opponent didn't play it, so I'm not sure. I mean, I was relieved in the game because I thought, okay, like, I have some chances, I guess, like, to recover from this. But my position is so bad that even missing this, my opponent missing this doesn't even matter. So queen f6, d6, rook a8. I'm simply defending the pawn on a6, queen c7, queen d8, queen c6, queen c8. I'm just trying to trade off the queens and hope for the best, because any sort of trade would help me. If we go to the endgame with the rooks on the board, I may have a chance to draw, or, well, I think going for winning chances is maybe a bit too much, but I'm still up a pawn, right? Anyway, rook a7, I cannot defend the pawn. I cannot. H6 is hanging, d7 is incoming. It's just dead lost. And of course, I can't move my queen to e6 because my rook would be hanging. So rook a7, queen takes, queen e6, queen e4, rook d7. I'm just going to make the moves really quickly because not much happened other than me just getting destroyed. E takes f6, king f7. I'm just trying to hold on for as long as I can. But after queen d5, I realized that there's king g6. After king g6, rook e6 is game over. I'm losing the queen. So yeah, that's the moment that I decided, okay, it's enough. I resigned here, and yeah, I was really happy with the game. I felt like I played really well, but the final moments of the game, it was quite a torture because I couldn't really figure out what went wrong, what could I have done better. It was really difficult to pinpoint it because I really thought that I had a really good position. But yeah, it turns out that in some moments I had to be a bit more precise, and yeah, I guess it was a tough game. It was a really tough game, but I felt like I put up a good fight, and yeah, I just played a really strong opponent, right? So let's move on to round 2. So in round 2, I faced Mario Balbuena Fuentes from Spain, and he has a rating of 2307. Also a FIDE master, and yeah, I was really excited to play him, especially because he often plays e4. And what do we play against e4? The French. So I was really happy to play the French d4, d5, but what I was not happy about is my opponent playing e5. This is, as far as I can remember, the third time in a row that I played the French, and my opponent plays the advanced variation, and that was not what they usually play. So this is again a surprise. So I thought, all right, here we go again. Because my opponent would usually play knight e2, and I was prepared for this, but my opponent went for e5, c5, c3, queen b6. We go for this line where I put the bishop on b5 to trade off the light squared bishops, which did happen. So d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and this line is actually a little bit different from what I'm used to. I don't think I have played this, I'm not sure. Usually this line occurs with the bishop on d3, but with the bishop on e2, it's a little bit different. b4 was played, and here is actually a really interesting moment. So the computer says that I can take here, and after king f1, I'm basically able to retreat the bishop, right? Retreat the bishop to d7, or I believe c6 even, is even better. And I can always play bishop to e3 or something like that, and apparently it's fine. I have to double check this properly, but yeah, I was really surprised to see this is actually possible. As you can see, the eval bar is also going up and down, so it's very undecided that's what works best. But anyway, I'll have to take a closer look at that. But yeah, I remembered really well from the course that I'm following on Chessable that I should take on e2. And I double checked it, and it's exactly what it says as well, that bishop takes e2 is the move they're going for in the course. So yeah, but apparently this is not the best move, so that was a big surprise to me. Queen takes e2, bishop e7. So in the course it also mentions bishop e7. The logical move would be bishop f8 in the sense that you allow your knight to develop to e7 and then to g6 or to f5. But I remember something vaguely in the course that I can just play bishop e7 here and I'm fine. The issue is that the course covers short castle and not the move that my opponent played. So I was like, oh. I mean, I didn't remember completely, but when I looked at it afterwards, I was like, very surprised. So I went for a6 to simply stop any sort of b5 or knight b5 for that matter. My opponent went short castle, knight c6, rook d1, and here I simply thought I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. Do I play queen c7, develop the rook. I really want to play f6, but I can't because e6 would be hanging. So then after some thought, I went for h5. Not a great move, but the idea is simple. I want to develop my knight to h6 and then f5. So yeah, the problem is that apparently c4 is a big problem. At the board, I thought it was completely fine because knight takes b4, c takes d5. I'm up a pawn. What's the problem? Well, as you can see from the computer evaluation, it looks like it's completely fine, which was quite interesting to find out after the game. Anyway, knight c4, queen c7. Also, by the way, just to rewind a little bit, I really heavily considered e takes d5 for the longest time. But the reason why I didn't play this is because at some point this pawn on d5 is going to be such a big weakness, and you know, for the next like 3 moves the pawn will be standing there. But yeah, I simply couldn't figure out what happens after bishop e3, queen g6, and at some point this pawn will fall. Maybe some rook will be developed to c1, and I basically didn't really see what the ideas are in this position for me. I didn't like this at all. So then at the end of the day, I thought knight takes e5 is fine. I will manage. I'm up a pawn. I do see a problem with knight c4, queen c7, and knight d6 check is always a move that white can consider. So I knew what I was up against here. Bishop e2 was played, knight h6, simply developing, right? Knight d6 check, and now I can play king f8. So yeah, I prepared this, well, I had this in mind for a while because I thought that I can absolutely not take this because it looks very appealing to take this, right? But the problem is that there's bishop takes g7, and yeah, this looks very awkward. I don't see exactly what's wrong with it. At least during the game, I was not entirely sure, but I knew that it can't be right because rook h7, bishop e5, and my king is very awkward, rook is very awkward. All my pieces are basically awkward. So anyway, king f8, rook c1, queen d7, of course, knight e4, knight f5. I was really feeling optimistic here. Also, my time management is great. My opponent is 49 minutes, I'm on 48 minutes. I was really satisfied with my play so far. g3 was played, queen b5, queen c2, knight b4. Here I started to lose the thread a little bit because it was really difficult to see like where do I actually place my pieces, because yeah, I kind of want to play king g7 and g6 of course, but then I get hit with knight d6 maybe, or knight f6, so it was a little bit difficult to decide where do I put my pieces. I guess I should have started with developing the rook to d8 or something. But yeah, I played knight b4. I really wanted to trade off the queens so that it will be, yeah, a better position for me to handle, because with the queens on the board, I always have this problem with the king, right? My opponent went for a4 here, and I was really surprised to see this move. I did not consider this at all. So seeing this move, I was very surprised. I was very sure that my opponent would go for most of just the queen b3. But yeah, then I was going to put the knight back to d5 or c6. I wasn't sure yet, but yeah, I was really liking my chances. But then my opponent hit me with a4. So yeah, knight takes c2, knight takes b5. I was really happy, but I was also very skeptical that my opponent's rooks are simply coming into the position. A takes b5, rook c7, and suddenly there's 2 rooks on the 7th rank. And I thought I was still fine, but seeing the threat knight d6 was not really nice to discover. So I'm just simply attacking, of course. Apparently I should have played something like rook d8, but it's already a slightly worse position. So I didn't dare to do this with the move bishop a3 in the air. Knight d5 was played by me, rook takes b7, b4. And here I thought I'm saving that pawn. But then suddenly the knight started to come into the game. I played knight h6 because I thought I have to avoid that knight at all costs and defend f7, so I defended. My opponent went for knight d4, and here I made a really bad mistake. Well, it's really hard to make a good move here because basically I'm supposed to play king g8, but then I would allow rook takes, knight takes, and rook takes, and yeah, with my poor pieces over here, I don't really think I'll be able to do much, right? So anyway, let's refresh that. So I played rook g8. The idea is that I step out of this diagonal, I want to take on d6, and then once e takes d6 happens, I play g5, and I try to get out with my king. But after knight c6, bishop takes pawn, takes king e8. So I'm playing king e8 with the idea that my opponent cannot take on b4, because then knight takes b4, and after rook takes, I take the rook on d7. So I was really happy to see this. So I felt like I was being a genius here, playing king e8 and all that stuff. But then my opponent hit me with a brilliant move, rook e7. And I was shocked. I thought, wow, okay, I have no idea why this is working. I have absolutely no idea. I just take because I have to. And then my opponent plays d7 check, and then all of a sudden, it all made sense. King f8, rook b8 check. I'm forced to take, knight takes b8, and it's impossible. It's impossible to stop the pawn on d7. I am up a rook and one pawn. And I cannot stop the pawn. You can't make this up. I can't stop the pawn, and after f6, I'm forced to allow my opponent to queen. And here I played on for a little while because I thought, okay, I have two knights and a rook. My opponent doesn't really have many pawns. Maybe I can create some sort of fortress, because there are crazy positions that end up in some fortress, and with two knights, maybe I can pull off a miracle, right? So king g6, knight c6, h4, but unfortunately for me, my opponent plays amazingly. Queen d7, takes, rook f8, and basically I can't play e5 because my knight is hanging. And if I play a move, let's say king f5, I mean, I didn't even want to consider this because knight d4 check and everything is just falling apart. And yeah, I wanted to play rook e8 as well, but rook a8, but I'm simply losing that pawn. The knight is hanging, the other knight is incoming of white, so the position is simply falling apart. So queen takes, knight c3, knight takes b4, and this is when I resigned. So yeah, tough games the first two rounds. I feel like I put up a really good fight, but yeah, it feels a little bit unlucky. But it also feels like my opponents are just much better prepared and just playing better overall than me. I really feel like I'm getting outplayed right now. Even though I really had, especially in game one, I felt like I had really good chances to, I was doing better. I had a small advantage, so yeah, difficult games, but I learned a lot already, and I'm excited for the next ones. It's a bit sad to start with 2 losses, but, well, first of all, they were both the black pieces, and second of all, both my opponents are the only ones with 2 out of 2. So yeah, maybe I just got really unlucky with the pairings. Maybe. But yeah, anyway, this was day 1 of my tournament in Spain. It's a little bit difficult to record the recap, so I will try to do it every single day, but it's currently 11:30, so it's very difficult to prepare and do all of the things I need to do and also record a recap, but I'll try to do it every single day, so stay tuned for my recaps of my next games. Tomorrow is round 3 at 9:30 in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll have round 4. Make sure to tune in to my live streams where I'm live streaming the games, and we'll also have commentary by my dear friend Vlad in the morning. So make sure to tune in either on YouTube or on Twitch. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you could also learn with me what went wrong, and let's do our best in the next ones. That's all we can do. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.